Alright, in this video I'm going to be talking about my religious and current standpoint as far as that goes, because I do think it's important, because it somewhat relates to certain views that I have on paranormal things, and just paranormal in general. And I'm going to try to be as non-offensive as I can, but I will have to say that religion in general has kind of jaded me towards it, just because of experiences that I've had and things that I've seen and continue to see, and how it seems to affect people. But basically, just getting solely into my background, for the most part, for the longest time, the majority of my life, I was what I would consider a Christian. I was never really any specific denomination, at least not chosen by me. I always believed in, basically my views have changed as I've gotten older. When I was younger, I believed in kind of the stereotypical God type situation, and I believed in that for a long time. And my parents kind of believed in the same thing. They were what I would consider Christian, but they were never what I would consider a practicing Christian. We didn't go to church. We celebrated Easter and Christmas, but it was more so just like a family gathering, more than like, reciting hymns or singing songs about God or anything like that. Like, I don't know if that's what religious people do. I don't really know. But it was more so about the family getting together and kind of celebrating being around each other and that kind of thing. So we did do that, and really the only exposure I had to very religious people were my grandmother. She was pretty religious. When I was younger, she would go to church a lot. And sometimes we would go to church all together, like for holidays and whatnot. I never really liked it. I found it kind of boring, but I was a kid, so when you're standing in place and have to sit and stand and sing songs, it just wasn't really my thing. But, I was a kid. So when I was very young, from, I would say, 1st to 3rd grade, I had a best friend. She was Catholic. So she was probably the biggest kind of religious influence I had as a young child, because my grandmother lives out of state, so I didn't really see her all that much. But this girl, we were best friends, so we spent a lot of time together. And her parents were very, very religious and very strict, very proper, very formal. I can't remember hearing them cuss, and if they did, it was like damn, stuff like that, like not something, like my parents, like, they cuss all the time, so, like, every curse word, so it wouldn't have been shocking for me to hear that from them, but they never spoke that way. And I don't know, it was just a completely different environment than what I was used to, which is kind of a good thing in some ways. And I spent a lot of time over there because we lived in an apartment, and they were in the unit that was like across the hall, so they were very close. So I would spend a lot of my time there, just because it was a more stable environment than my house. And I don't know, like, I liked spending time with my friend, and I don't think she ever came to my apartment. Like, her parents didn't seem to really like my parents, and kind of at times I felt like they didn't like me, just because they might have thought that I was a bad influence on her because I wasn't religious like they were. And I celebrated Halloween, which was a big thing. They did not. She wasn't even allowed to trick or treat or dress up or anything. The music that I was listening to, because my parents were listening to, they did not agree with. They listened to strictly Christian music and all that good stuff. And so I had that kind of influence when I was younger. And I mean, they were overall good people, but they were very judgmental, and it came across a lot especially with my parents, and I don't know, you could just tell that they did not accept, or I don't know. I don't want to get into that. So that was that, and then from there, I didn't really have that much influence until about 7th grade, where I went to a Lutheran school. And if you don't know what Lutheran is, it's basically very similar to Catholicism, except less strict. I think the guy's name was Martin Luther, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time, but he basically founded the sect of Christianity away from Catholicism, because there were certain things, I guess, he didn't agree with, and I don't really remember what it was, but they basically, at least where I went to school, they weren't as ritualistic, I guess. Like, we didn't do Lent or like the whole, I think it was mainly like stuff like Lent, just basically like stuff like that we didn't really do. We were supposed to go to church every Sunday. It was actually a part of our quote-unquote attendance at school, but just because of the work schedule and everything, we never went, basically. And my teachers were never happy about that. The pastor that was kind of like the principal of the school, he didn't like that either. But it's like, I was a kid, I didn't really have that much control over whether my parents took me to church every Sunday or not. Plus, we had chapel every Wednesday, so to me it was like, I don't know, I felt like that was enough. But it was, again, very judgmental. And even back then, mind you, I was listening to Backstreet Boys, which were very popular at the time. And if you know anything about them, I wouldn't say their music's, I don't know what the right word would be, but it's not something that most people would consider like a bad influence on their kid, or something you would take your kid's CD because of. Like, prior to that, like, for instance, I had a Puff Daddy CD. This was back when Puff Daddy was very popular, and my friend at the time, she listened to rap, so that's pretty much what I was listening to. And for a very young kid, I was only like 12 or 13, to be listening to those kind of, lyrics, I wouldn't say it was appropriate. And I actually had my CD taken away from me, because one parent got it from me, because you had to be 18 to get it, and the other parent took it away, even though I ended up getting the CD back anyway from a different source, but I just hid it. But they're not really something that you want to expose your kid to. But as far as Backstreet Boys go, yeah, there might have been slight sexual references in some of the songs, but in general, they were pretty harmless. But according to this one lady at our church/school, they were inappropriate, and we shouldn't have been listening to them, because I forget what the one song was. It was like a completely harmless song, but she's, I don't know, dissecting it and trying to make it into something it wasn't, and saying that, I don't know, they were bad, and it's just like, whatever. I kind of ignored it, but it's stuff like that, and she was very mean, like, things that she would say to some of us. Mind you, like I said, we were in 7th and 8th grade. They really shouldn't be said to someone that's that young. Just, I don't know, very, very mean. The whole atmosphere was very negative, and for something that pretty much should have the opposite effect and opposite atmosphere, it was very odd to me, which really didn't hit me until after I was out of that, environment. Because basically the reason I went there to begin with is because where we were living, I would have had to go to Cleveland public schools, which would have been middle school. And the area that we lived in wasn't bad, but the school we would have had to go to, or I would have had to go to, would have been not good. It was not a good school. Cleveland public school system in general is not that great, even back then. So with a parochial school, which is like a Lutheran, any kind of religious type of school, you have to pay to go there, but you can live outside of the city limits, whereas a regular public school, you have to live within whatever city you're in. So going there allowed me to go to school there in a better neighborhood, but still living physically outside of that area. So that's pretty much why we went there. And I think it was probably the cheaper of the schools, and that's why we chose that one. And that was pretty much it. I don't know that it had anything really to do with religion of why we went there. They probably thought it was a better environment for us, even though we weren't really super religious at the time. And I mean, I understand why they did it, but it really wasn't a better environment at all. It wasn't accepting. It just wasn't a good environment at all. And, you know, even the kids were very mean there, I mean, you're gonna get that anywhere you go to school, but overall, they were just very, very judgmental and all that. So then after that, after 8th grade, because it was, and that was another weird thing, it was a very small school, so the grades were combined, so you had like 1st and 2nd together, 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th. It was really strange. So after 8th grade, we ended up moving before I started high school, and we actually moved into the city where that school was. And I had the option of going to another parochial school, which would have been a Catholic high school, or just going to public school. I chose public school because I really didn't feel like it was benefiting me going to a religious type of school. I didn't really like the kids that were going to that school, and I really didn't want to be around those kind of kids. They were kind of stuck up, and I just didn't like it. So I decided to go to public school, and it was a lot cheaper. It was way, way cheaper, because the high school was even more expensive than where, you know, we had been going. So that was pretty much the last, like, imposed influence on religion that I had. And I was Christian for a while after that. I can't pinpoint a moment for you where that changed. It's just over time and learning things and doing research and stuff like that. What is my cat doing? She just like attacked my hand for no reason. Anyway, it's just one of those things that you kind of grow out of, and I'm not saying that's going to happen to everyone. It's just when you're young, you pretty much believe what, you know, your parents believe, or what you think you should believe, or what's imposed upon you, or what's around you. But as you get older and make decisions for yourself, you can sometimes grow out of whatever beliefs or traditions or whatever that you had when you were younger. And that's just really what happened with me. And I personally, I don't have a problem with religious people, as long as they're respectful of other people's beliefs and don't try to impose their beliefs and religion on other people. I can understand kind of exposing your religion to other people, but try not to force it upon them, because if they want to believe, they're going to believe. If they don't, they're not, and all you're doing is really turning them away and making them less receptive to whatever you're trying to convey. So you're having the opposite effect of whatever you're doing. If they want to know more about it, if they're interested in, you know, believing in it or becoming a part of whatever religious group you're in, they'll become a part of it. And there's so much information online and whatnot, there's really no reason to enforce that kind of thing, because more than likely they've had exposure at some point, and if it's of interest to them, they've already taken interest in it. And if they're not, there's really nothing you can do to make them interested. So that is that. So while I don't have a problem with religious people, I do have a problem with religion in general, just because, and I won't say I have a problem with it, it's more so that it's not something that I want to be a part of, basically because there's no one religion that I believe is completely true, or completely the right way to think, at least not how it is now. I think with a lot of religions, they might have started off with a good intention, or good concept, or whatever you want to call it, but as time has progressed and people have gotten their views into it and their translation of whatever they thought the original view is, the original idea becomes pretty much non-existent, and people fall away from the true intention of whatever they believe in and delve into more of what they believe in, and they want you to believe what they believe. And I have a problem with that. I have a problem with something that tells me that this is how I have to think. I can't think anything else is correct because this is the one thing that's correct. I think that every religion, for the most part, that I've come in contact with has had some level of truth to it. They have some parts of it that are correct or good ways of thinking, which is another problem that I have, is that, at least with a lot of Christians I've come across, they believe that you quote-unquote can't pick and choose what you believe in. And I don't buy that. I don't. I think the Bible is a good reference. I think it has good values in it. Not all of it. I personally don't think all of it is good. There are, especially like an Old Testament, it's a very dark part of history, and just the whole mentality is different from the old to the new. And a lot of it is open for interpretation, so you can't necessarily take everything literally in there. And it was a different time period when this was written too, so you have to put that into context. I mean, would you want to learn from a science book from 1914? No, because science has changed. We have learned more. We've had scientific breakthroughs left and right. We have more technology that can test certain things, and science changes every day. Every day we learn more things, and sometimes what we thought was truth turns out to be false, or false under certain conditions. Like, science isn't 100% foolproof either, because things are constantly changing, and we're constantly learning about things that we had no idea existed before. So pretty much you just have to be open-minded, and I think religion can very much make someone very closed-minded, narrow-sighted, judgmental, and it's just not something that I want to be a part of. And I pretty much have a problem with anything that tries to control someone by fear or through fear, and I think that's what a lot of it is, and that's just my personal belief. I am trying to be more spiritual than anything else. I've never been an atheist or a Satanist or anything like that. I have always believed in a higher power of some sort. I don't necessarily believe in a quote-unquote God type of existence, just because, I don't know, I'm not saying that it can't be, it's not possible. I'm not saying that, because no one knows. No one knows for 100% what's going on. As much as they like to claim that they do, they don't know. So I'm open to the possibility that it could exist. I don't believe it exists as we believe that it does, if that makes any sense. Like, I think that the God concept is far greater than we as humans can understand. It's greater than us. It's greater than our mind can even contemplate. And that's kind of like where spirituality has filled in a lot of blanks for me. It explains a lot more than anything else has for me, and that's important to me. I was given a mind to be able to come to my own conclusions, to question things. I think that is the beauty of life, is being able to question and philosophize. I think that's the term. Some of the best moments of my life were having deep conversations with people, which I don't get a good chance to do anymore, because I don't really have a lot of intellectual types that I'm in contact with. I don't really have friends that are really interested in the things that I'm interested in, not anymore. And, people that I'm around at work and stuff like that, it's not something that interests them. People have become very, their the priorities are not exactly where they should be. At least, well, we'll put it this way. Our priorities don't match. We'll put it that way, because I can't really... That's one thing that is like a big part of like the whole spiritual thing, is you're not supposed to judge people, which is very hard. It's a lot harder than you would think, because not judging someone goes far beyond not criticizing them. It's more so not judging them at any level, which is very hard. That means there's no good, there's no bad. Everything's neutral. It's just different priorities, different, the one guy put it, it's different preferences, basically. So I'm not going to say that their priorities are not where they should be, because I guess for them that's where they should be, but they don't match with my priorities. So I don't have the ability to have deep conversations like I used to, but they're very enlightening. I like listening to other people's views as long as they're respectful, and I have no problem questioning my own views as long as it's done in the proper way. Anyway, I think this video is long enough. Hopefully I explained myself properly. Like I said, I'm in no way bashing your religion per se. I just have a problem with religion in general. It's not for me. If it's for you, that's wonderful. If it makes you happy, if it gives you meaning and purpose, that's fine. It's just not what I want to do and how I want to live my life. And all that I ask is that you respect that. You don't have to accept it or agree with it, just respect it. So, yeah.